Man, it is time to see what is going down. So turn on, tune in, and don't drop out till you watch this video.
Bring the stick inside. Go. There we are. All right. I'm gonna just check. Right. Alrighty.
Okay. So, again, hello, son. This is my son, Anthony Hill. He sent me a text message a couple of weeks ago about the afterlife. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
And my first inclination was just another question. But then you sent me another text about your concerns on how you're kind of distancing yourself from a belief in God. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, and you wanted to talk it to me because basically I'm kind of invested a lot of my life in that subject, haven't I?
Yeah, I trust you
At
more
least
than.
the last 23, 24 years,
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research. So, one of the things that people don't fully grasp is God's not petty.
Yeah.
He doesn't see this moment in our existence as everything. He only sees it as a place that we build from or to continue to build from because to become like him, and again, I'm talking from a person that can say that God does exist. I come from the standpoint that our Father wants us to be like Him, and in order for us to become like Him, we have to uh, experience some of the same things He did while He was existent on an earth much like our own, such as Jesus Christ, who is in spirit form before He's born to Mary, and then He comes and experiences human life, and He dies, and then He's resurrected. So that kind of uh, so the purpose of this experience is to again to really to really understand what our Father in heaven and Jesus Christ are all about and why they do the things they do in some capacity, not all capacity, but some capacity. And then we have uh, a time to in our mortal state to prove whether we can be how loyal we are to our Father in heaven and Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And do you understand that? Do you understand that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I understand it. And it all makes sense in a way. It's just my biggest struggle is knowing if it's folktale or if it's real. And it's I kind of know in the past year I've kind of separated myself. Beforehand, it's been, yeah, no doubt. I know I believe in it, no doubt, 100%. I believe it, no questions asked. But in the past year, I've kind of, I say it's the first time I ever doubted myself, and it's more of just in a struggle. Is it real or not?
You know, you're not the only one that struggled.
Yeah,
The I mean, Hugh Nibley, one of the greatest apologists for the church, he struggled when he was in his late teens. Uh, Daniel Peterson struggled when he was in his late teens. You're a little bit past your late teens, but not too far. So the struggle is somewhat normal. Even for myself, I struggle with, even now, even as much as it's happened to me, I struggle hanging on sometimes. Uh, even so I can understand Anthony's dilemma because it's really hard to connect to something that's not tangible in front of us. Is that right?
Yeah.
You know, we see a microwave, we see the phone, we see our girlfriend or fiance or wives or whatever. We can see those and tangibly understand, and our perception of them is more real than something that is only introduced to us through other people's experience. Is that right?
Yeah. And the thing is, too, I've told you, I've had those out of body experiences where I believe, or it's just like I prayed, and I had that answer. I've told you what I've had before. I won't mention it, but I told you directly. I prayed about it. I laid down. It was more of like a hand on my head, and like almost whenever we had the the blessings where we had the missionaries or somebody in the um, priesthood lay their hands on you and they prayed for you. It was more than that feeling whenever I've had that experience where I prayed about something and they put their I felt something touch my head with their hands and tell me my answer. And 5 minutes later, I found my answer.
And I've had some pretty crazy experiences too. You've heard them, a lot of
Yeah,
them. But even those experiences, uh, obviously, it's not enough.
yeah,
And so, again, the the reason we become uh, disconnected from our belief in God is not always. It's not the same. It can happen for various reasons. The question is what are we willing to do about it to reconnect?
yeah.
You know, and if we're and that's only if it has value. I mean, again, I was 33 when or 32, 31, whatever it was. Let's see. You're how old are you, Anthony?
I am 23.
23. So basically 23, 24 years ago, I was fully disconnected with God. Not that I stopped ever really saying he existed or something existed, but I lived a life like there was no God.
Yeah,
Uh, and if and so again, if we're and so again, there was no value in my life to to have a God in my life. So I didn't have any real reason to uh, uh, to connect or to even have any purpose of investigating the idea.
yeah,
And so obviously you're talking to me who's won't deny the fact that God exists. And so that means you're trying to get connected. Is that right?
yeah,
So and you're trying and you feel like, well, Dad's pretty gifted in how he talks about things. So let's
yeah.
lay a foundation first. Did I got a question for you real quick before we get started
Yeah.
in the foundation. Did you watch any of my videos?
No, I haven't.
That's again, I'll tease you a little bit because I love you, but I think it's if you don't watch the testimonies of others and really find a way for us to overcome our doubts,
Hmm.
then how are you going to
Get that answer.
overcome the doubt if you
Yeah,
don't put anything in its place to enable that? It's like I mean, you can't tow a vehicle without a tow truck.
yeah,
So if you're not putting if you don't have the tow truck to tow the car, you can walk to the car all day long, but if you don't have it a tow truck, you ain't going to tow that car very far with your teeth.
yeah. No, I won't do
So
that.
so if you're not using the tools that are already available to overcome your doubts, how are you going to overcome doubt?
Yeah, exactly.
So again, let's lay a foundation on why I would say that God exists. For one, do you understand that the word God exists? Is that right?
Yeah, no, I understand it's there.
And do you understand? Do you accept its definition?
Yeah.
And the complete definition, or just the one? Which one do you accept?
The Bible, the Book of Mormon, I accept it.
So, but you're still having those doubts. Is that right?
Yeah.
So let's because I'm not going to uh, pretend that I can open up your mind and pour my experiences into your mind. You understand what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
won't have the same feeling. I can only tell you about my experiences, but you can't. But unless you have your own experiences, it's really hard to connect, isn't it?
Yeah.
And and I got a question. Why does Dad have all these times that he's had all these great things happen to him spiritually?
You're more in tune with God and His way of life. You have a more personal connection with Him because you've kind of you've let go of all the worldly uh, what's the word objects. Meaning like you've dedicated your life to listening to God's word. If you get what I mean, that's why.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a lot to that, and I was just going to emphasize that the other part of that is I do his work.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm engaged all the time. I'm engaged with you right now, helping you through this part of your life that you're having struggles. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's what I love to do, and also we're all given gifts of the Spirit, meaning that we're all connected to the universe in a way that allows us to get connected to God in a more personal way. So He's given me the gift of prophecy or being prophetic. He's given me the revelation. He's done all these things, and but why doesn't it happen to you? That's because it's not. And I'm just a rhetorical question. I'm going to answer it, and maybe you can uh, add on because that's my gift.
Mm-hmm.
It's not yours, maybe because you haven't you don't know what your gift really is. Is that right? You know
No.
what your talents are.
Yeah.
I know what my talents are. I'm bad at basketball. I'm okay. I'm pretty good at just about everything, but like I said, I'm not great. But those are my talents, and I can do pretty much everything really good. But I can't do them great. Nothing great. But my gifts of the Spirit are I receive revelation. I have prophetic dreams. You know, I basically have those gifts. For Anthony, he doesn't know what those gifts are yet. Is that right?
No, I know I've had I can't remember what it's called, but when they basically prophesy or like where it's like I know. So when I was younger, teens, I was very indebted with the church. Then I got the so they lay your hands and they basically tell you they speak to God and he talks. I can't remember what it's called.
Patriarchal blessing.
Yeah, there we are. I've gotten that. I know I haven't read it. I haven't read it in a while because I haven't felt worthy enough to read it.
Yeah. Well, that's. I mean, the Holy Ghost departs from us when we are not living a life. Because if you've received the priesthood, say amen to the priesthood for those who do not honor the priesthood in its fullest.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a disconnect in a lot of ways because and like I said, God understands. I mean, I lived a pretty bad, a really horrible life in a lot of ways up to the time where I changed. So, and, but again, it was, I don't even know why I came back to the church. It's like, I'm still kind of fuzzy on the whole thing, on
Mm-hmm.
how it happened, except for the fact that I just, it was a moment in my life that God could talk to me now, that I was ready to be there for it no matter what kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, and I was reminded of a scripture, and I hope I can bring it up here. Let me find it. There we go. It's the it's in Moroni 10, and something that people don't understand about God's work. And here's the crux of it. And I put it up here on the screen. Um, it says this. This is where God's promise is. If you ponder and pray about the Book of Mormon, you can receive an answer. Is that right?
Yeah.
And if you do it with real intent, then God would. But there's something that goes on before that. And I want to read that to you. And it says, "Behold, I would exhort you that when ye shall read these things, if it be wisdom in God,
Hmm.
if it be wisdom in God." Think about that. He's just not going to hand it to you because you're asking for it. He's going to give it to you when it is the most optimum time for you to receive it. I don't think I really received an answer for the Book of Mormon for years and years after I'd already locked in that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God. So, I mean, it just, even though I prayed about it, but it never came. A lot of other things came before then, but it was wisdom in God that He left that out there for me to kind of keep wanting.
Hmm.
So sometimes when we're asking for something from God, again, Him knowing all things in past, present, and future, do you believe that God would use the most optimum time to answer that question? So
Yeah.
it takes the impact of it will be at its optimum.
It makes sense. It's like a kid who's like, it's like me asking you guys when I was a kid, hey, can I get an Xbox or can I do this? Like, no, I'm not gonna just give you an Xbox. You gotta work for it. You gotta, put in the work before I can give you that what you want. That's what kind of I understand with God is you gotta put in the work before He's gonna give you your answers. You gotta make sure um you're dedicated. It's not just a one-off thing.
The other part of that is not only does, but he looks at the optimum time when you're going to be fully engaged in the
Yeah,
work too. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's not, and for some reason, for some people who have left the church, they've got the confirmation that it's true, but yet they distance themselves from the church. Uh, but it was of good use at the time for them because they affected other people.
yeah,
Sometimes, even though that he knows, then I'm talking from a person who says God exists. Again, that's where I come from. He gives those people serve a purpose at the time that the information was revealed to them, and then they are proven whether that was enough for them to be locked in.
yeah,
And like I said, you think about, and I'm going to give you some numbers to help you understand what eternity looks like because we don't know what it looks like, but it kind of illustrates what it looks like. In the human body, there is 30 trillion cells, and each one of those cells is 100 trillion atoms. All right, that's just within the human body. All right, we can't even now. If you were to count every atom in the universe, you would still come within less than 1% of what eternity looks like. Is that right?
yeah,
So it's an unbelievable number. We can't even understand it. So how long do we live within that within that number? There's a number that we can't even use to describe how short the time is that we live in our eternity. Is that right?
yeah,
It's unbelievable. It's can't we can't connect to it. So given that, God is not petty. He's not petty because people believe in him now or not. What he's saying is, if you follow me, receive Jesus Christ as your Savior, receive the witness of the Holy Ghost, and continue on that path, then not only is your hope in his Son real, become real, but it also allows families to get through some very hard things in life. Some very hard things in life. Because hard things are going to happen because everything is out of control, out of our own control. Even some of our own decisions are sometimes not, we don't understand why we do what we do. It's kind of like just knee jerk reaction. So again, we're not fully in control of all of our decisions that we make in a lot of ways because we're reacting to other people's decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says, look, if you just take the gospel and use it as a tool to govern your life, then things, you're going to be successful in life. Not that you're going to be like in a utopian state, but you're going to be successful spiritually because you'll be connected, temporally because you'll fashion your life to work hard, earn money, and to whatever you'll spend money wisely, you'll save, you'll be prepared for whatever is to come, food storage and all that. And then socially, you'll be successful because you'll know the people that you are going to best enable you to stay connected to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what he's saying. But that's only for our earthly life.
Yeah.
I'll let you. That's only for our earthly life that really matters in our mortality. What happens to us after our existence here on this earth is, if we were connected to our family here in a real way, then we'll be connected there.
Mm-hmm.
We won't have that dysfunction there
Yeah.
because it wasn't here. But if we have dysfunction here, then there could be a greater chance that we could have that dysfunction there, and we wouldn't want to have that relationship. The same way as if for it's a, what would you say, it's one of them phrases that people just lock onto because it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
It sounds popular. I want to be with God.
Yeah.
They say it. I want to be with God after I die.
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing? Do you want to be with God there, but do you want to be with God here?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. We don't change who we are so much after we die and who we want to be around, because the people that we want to be around here will be the same people that we'll want to associate there with.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying there?
So I get it.
So again, if you go back, let's go back to the foundation. You said you trust the words of the Bible and the Book of Mormon and the scriptures, but you're still having that doubt. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So and how long has this doubt been going on?
I say it started about, I have to say, in January.
Okay, that's not too long. People fight through it for a long time. Again, I fight through it all the time because it's just my mind works very analytically.
Yeah.
I'm a great troubleshooter, so I look at things like all over the place. I just search things out, and I don't let. I try not to allow my own desire to be the reason I connected to God. It's
Yeah.
I say I want the realization of God being real before I have the desire to connect with Him.
Yeah.
So again, my process is this way on how I can. Sometimes it's just not the spiritual things in my life that helps me get through my doubts.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to go back and go, where's the science? So let's look at the science or just the definition of God. So the definition of God is, in my words, and it kind of uh, it's driven by what the Bible says. It's driven by what the dictionary says, and the scriptures say. But it is a God is that which has dominion over man and nature.
Yeah.
God affects both man and nature. Uh, a God can be worshipped. A God can be a judge. A God can be a creator. A God can be uh, uh, an idol or whatever, a TV or whatever you want to put your life into. So the definition of God in a lot of ways in Christianity has been narrowed down to this singular idea that we get locked into that one singular idea and we can't understand that the word God even means a place in the balcony of a theater. That there's that the word God can be used in a variety of ways, so that we don't get sucked into the idea that there's this singular idea of God, and if I can't connect to that singular idea of God, then there is no God. You
Hmm.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get it.
So again, so when we look at the universe, it has effect and dominion over nature and man. Is that right?
Yeah.
So to say there was no God, it's kind of like, okay, well, how is the universe? How doesn't the universe itself have attributes that we can associate with the dictionary to say that it can be a God? Is that right?
Yeah. No,
All
the
right.
God in there. Yeah. No, I believe it.
Do you understand where we're going with this?
Yeah. I know. I get it.
All right. So now the word God is also attached to those who are superior. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like, say, Jimi Hendrix, guitar god, or Kobe Bryant, who's a basketball god, or who, we could put the word God and it'd be a title for those who have superior attributes. Is that right? Say
Yeah.
yes or don't shake your
I,
head on a camera.
no, I get it. Like, I get there's that science. It's like Jesus. Like you say, oh, I don't believe in that or whatever, and historians will be like, no, like Jesus did exist. There's no way to disprove it. He did exist.
Right.
And there's the God particle. There's stuff in science that believes that God exists. I've been researching, and I was watching this video. It says the consciousness lasts up to 15 minutes after death, or where people they had a study where people had near death experiences and they were floating over their body. Their spiritual being was over their body, and they were able to recite what the doctor was operating on them to a T and everything. And it's just like I know it to be true. I just have that doubt where
You
I
have to
feel,
have somebody remind you.
yeah,
I think that's a part of it is if you don't have anything around you that reminds you that these things in your life that you've experienced that other people have experienced, if you don't have people or if you're not communicating with others about these experiences or about these understandings you have of God, then it's very easy to get into the world of doubt. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I just happen to be the vessel in which you can talk to and say, hey, these things are, credible that you're
Yeah.
feeling and that you're thinking. And like I said, it's so I'm just like I said, I'm going to go to one couple of other things in science that we can look at to see if we can look at the universe and see if there's a possibility for there to be a creator in the
Yeah.
universe. I mean, we ourselves create. We, I mean, whatever we bring forth children, whatever it be, that makes us a creator when we bring forth life, uh, and therefore it gives us those God-like attributes.
Yeah.
You have scientists who are creating plants uh, or altering the genetic form of the plant by introducing other plant species to develop a more hardy plant. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's a creative type of idea. You have cloning that's been introduced into the world. Again, not going and creating the DNA signature for what they're creating, but creating from the DNA to create another creature alike that is formed in the DNA. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, so we are becoming more and more like having more and more of those godlike attributes the more that our science is advanced. All right. So if you look at even in our own galaxy, the NASA says there's 400 million planets like the Earth that could sustain life. 400 million. Is that like a number that you can't even wrap your head around?
Yeah, no, that's pretty big.
Okay. So if there's 400 million planets in the galaxy, and there's 156 billion galaxies in the universe, in the known universe, the numbers are astronomical of how many planets could sustain life. And on one of those planets, I would say that there was man who learned how to create their own kind, create plants and all these things, and was also able to colonize other planets, such as Earth. That's where you get both the evolution of things that evolved from the Earth itself, but you also have the story of Adam and Eve,
Yeah.
where God actually colonized Adam and Eve on the Earth so that it would, so that the Earth would bring forth His fruit, and not from the natural consequences of the Earth and its and how it's formed. And a lot of people get kind of away from that idea of evolution because they don't like the word evolution. They think it's sacrilegious to kind of even have an idea that somehow things just evolved. Now, I would say, please don't get too far into evolution and think that we came from the ocean as a frog and then all of a sudden we became man. Man is man is man is not as far back as man has been around. An elephant comes from a mammoth. It doesn't come from a pig.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the species is now, you can look back in its foundational DNA and know that it came from its same species. That all species have their own root.
Mm-hmm.
Man has its own root. And so again, Adam and Eve's story is the colonization of man here on this earth. From those who have lived for eons and understand the science of how to create these things. Does that make any sense at all?
No, that makes sense.
Now, do you accept the idea that there's life on other planets?
Oh, of course.
It'd be absurd to think that there's not. Is that right?
Yeah, it would be very closed-minded and naive to think.
Yeah, because not only are we experiencing where the government is starting to come out and say, hey, there's things going on that we just can't understand, but here's some footage of these craft that are just like unbelievable. They haven't really came out and said, hey, we've got these creatures that came from this vessel that, that kind of thing. They haven't done that yet. But we know that there's been at least the craft that have been shown to us on TV, on the news. But again, if we have, even if you were to take the idea, which is an absurd idea, that the universe is 13.8 billion years old because of the Big Bang, which is, it's just, it's an unbelievable idea because the vastness of the universe is 96 billion light years in distance, but yet the universe is only 13.8 billion years old. So how do you get this effect 96 billion light years away from its single moment that it existed from the Big Bang? It doesn't work. The math is not there. So they try to see in science, what they do is they try to, they have the number 13.8 billion years, and then they see the distance in which the known universe is, and they put and then they use a formula that makes it true. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They force the validity of their statement of the universe being 13.8 billion years old by using formulas that create the truth.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even now, Ronnie, old reliable, he says that they found a planet or a star that's over 14 billion years old. So how's that work?
Yeah.
So again, again, a lot of times the science doesn't go well. They have no idea what's going on. They, like I said, they have some narratives that they try to hold on to, but it's not. It doesn't. After a while, because new science comes in, the old science looks foolish. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Earth was flat not less than 1,500 years ago,
Yeah.
or actually less than what? We're 2022. Less than 600 years ago, people were saying that the Earth was flat. And they were saying the Earth was the center of the universe. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me give you some examples of how how history is repeated. Now you've got people that are calling it the flat earther people. Is that right? All right. And then when they measure the universe, they measure the distance of the universe from the Earth in one direction, which is 48 billion light years. And they say, because we know that the universe is 48 billion light years in one direction, then it's 48 billion light years in the other direction. So that what they're saying is the Earth is the center of the universe again.
Yeah.
So how ridiculous is that to go backwards in that logic again? So again, when we look at science, science is just as bad as a lot of theologies out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't agree with me unless you do.
I don't have an answer on it. I don't know yes or no because I'm not really.
You haven't researched it enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this is what I fall in love with, and this is what I do. Is that right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there. But let's get back to, you accept the fact that God exists because it's defined in multiple sources. Is that right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, and that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we say that our Father in heaven was much like our own selves. Man is as God once was, and God is as man may become. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, no, it rings a bell.
Okay, so we're saying that our Father in heaven was once a man who lived on an earth much like our own, who now is exalted, and now we can become like him because of our experience. Is that right?
Hmm.
Sounds
Yeah,
like an alien being came to the earth and colonized it. Is that right?
yeah, no, it makes sense.
You know, your grandpa said that, because he was pretty much a non believer in a lot of things. He said, we were colonized here by the aliens. And I mocked him because that seemed absurd to me when he said it, because the source in which it was coming from was who a man who said that there was no real God, but he said there was aliens who colonized us.
Hmm.
So I thought it was an absurd idea at the time, but then all of a sudden I figured out he was right. He was smarter than I first perceived in that way. So again, now does that at least move you to a position where you can kind of say science can at least give me some definition that God there could be a God more than just the one that is a spiritual idea, but a physical
Yeah,
being?
no, yeah, that makes sense a lot.
Because we ourselves are becoming more godlike, and give us 1,000 years, what are going to be our attributes ourselves and as mankind? Remember that we ourselves are again doing all the work we can to find out how we were created and to create more of our own through scientific methods. But we're also looking to colonize other planets. Is that right?
Yeah,
So if we have those attributes or those desires, then others that live on other planets would have those same
desires.
ideas. What are they flying around the Earth for?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? They're not flying all over the planet to just observe. They have purpose. I think some people think that aliens from another planet are all serene and undesirable creatures that have uh, um, no bad intentions.
yeah,
But that's again, they're individuals. They have reason and cause for why they do what they do.
hmm,
They have desire, and that reason and cause is based on desire, and those desires are independent for each alien being that exists.
yeah,
Just like when we look at the problem with the border, we call them aliens when uh, we call them aliens that have come over the border, and we call them aliens because they come from another place, and we see them as something that is doesn't belong here. But once they what would you say? Once they acclimate themselves to the society, then they're no longer called aliens. They're called citizens. Is that right?
yeah,
So again, when we are when we look at creatures from another planet, we say them as aliens. But if they were actually to come here and live and acclimate themselves to our society, they no longer be aliens. Is that right?
no, you're right.
So again, so now that we kind of got through some science stuff, and it's pretty complicated to say the least, but we've
Yes,
got because we're going to put this on YouTube, of course,
of course.
and Because we need to share these experiences so that we can help other people through whatever. I got a question.
Yeah.
I being dad, do I care if you believe or not?
Of course you do.
Are you sure?
I mean, I would hope so.
I mean, I care, but not to the point where it would it would
Instrument you.
it would make a difference in our relationship. Is that right?
Yeah. No. Yeah,
Our
no, you don't.
relationship is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
No matter what your decisions are, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So it could grow, but it can't get less.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, if you're not engaged, I mean, if you're not engaged 100% like I am, then I have problems anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And not in a mean way, but just because I care, but not to the point where. But I care enough to say you can find your own path.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get it.
Do you believe that?
Yeah.
Okay. Let the audience know that you believe it. But, you know, because that's, even though that, you know, if you were to draw a triangle, and if you were to put God at the point of the triangle, and you would put yourself on one corner and put other on the other corner, in my reality, the closer you come to God, the closer your relationship is with each other. Is that right?
Yeah.
But if one's moving towards God and the other one's not going the same direction, then that string that ties you gets stretched thin. Does that right?
Yeah.
And for some people, it gets stretched so thin that it breaks. They can't have a relationship with those who don't believe. But for me, I love all my children. It's not, you've got 7 brothers and sisters, is that right? From a mixed family, is that right?
Yes,
That's
I
very
do.
mixed. And even though that, because of your guys' uh, uh, different lifestyles, I haven't stopped loving you any more than I have. Is that right?
Yeah. No, you,
If I loved
just
you more, I'd probably want to choke you all. You know, but I've given you guys freedom, and you guys can talk to me anytime you want. I never have said, "Hey, you're not my child" or anything like that. Is that right?
yeah.
Because you distanced yourself from the church. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I haven't done that to anybody else. Is that right?
Yeah.
But for me, it just gives me more people to debate. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
I'd rather have opponents than family members in the church. It seems like. But
Yeah.
so I just want to make sure that we're clear on why I do what I do. It's not because I'm trying to convince anybody to believe, or I'm just helping those who want to be helped.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
So now you said that you've had an experience where you prayed and you felt this touch on your head. Is that right?
Yep.
Do you remember some of the uh, experiences I've had? Shall I review some of them for you?
Yeah. I don't remember any of them.
Well, if you watch my videos, you would have been ready for that question. So let me go to the one that it connects us in a bigger way. Okay. Now, it's kind of interesting. You were the child that was going to be born whenever I got connected back to the God.
Yeah.
So, and here you are willing to put yourself out on video, excuse me, on video and promote my ideas about God. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so there's obviously a connection there that we have. It's deeper than just just a human to human experience. I think there's more to it
Yeah.
because of that. The other thing is one of my experience that I came to realize of its validity, because is it possible for a person to want something so bad that he can put things in place to make him dream about a situation?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to fly, so I dream I'm flying. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So your grandpa died in 2006. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can't probably remember everything, but about 2006 he died.
January 1st. Yep.
Yeah. January 2nd or 1st?
I think
Second.
it's
It was second.
second. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Um, and remember, and we know he was having a hard time with alcohol, women, and all that. Is that right?
Yeah.
He was quite charismatic, wasn't he? He was. The women just flocked all over him. It's just crazy, and he didn't keep himself well groomed at all, to say the
No, he did
least.
not.
But yet the women were all over him. It was funny. But again, but he had problems with alcohol and smoking, and he passed away. Uh, he uh, uh, had while he was smoking, I guess it created not a cancer, but a poison within his body that poisoned his blood, and they were trying to give him transfusions to take the poison out, but it eventually got caught up with him, and he died from it. And he had stopped drinking for like 15 years or so, like that. But I think once he found out he was dying, and he probably started back on it,
Yeah.
probably hit him hard. Uh, but anyway, but he was a worldly man. So he dies in 2006. And we've got this thing in the church called Work for the Dead. Is that right?
Yep. I've done it.
Where you go to the temple, a person stands in place in the waters of baptism, and another person dunks them under, and says a prayer over them, and then they're then the spirit who exists can either accept that baptism or deny it. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And so the uh, in 2006 he died, and it was like 12 years later, and I still hadn't done his work, and I was kind of waiting for one of the you older children to kind of put yourself in a place where we could get that done for him, and but we never got it going for whatever reason, and so a few years ago, I had this dream, and the dream was that I was driving a bus. I had the kids on my soccer team in the back of the bus, and we went up a off ramp, and then the bus took off, and it lost the steering wheel, and it went down into the embankment or off the hill of that off ramp. And so there I am working on the bus in this dream, and whenever I dream about my ancestors, it's never where I'm engaged in a real conversation with them. It's very obscure, and it's it's like really no connection there. But in this
Mm-hmm.
dream, where I was working on the bus, and my dad's voice said, "What you doing?" And every time that my dad needed some help, that was the first thing he said. "What you doing?" I said, "Oh," and when he called me on the phone, he says, and like I said, he said, "What you doing?" I said, "Oh, just working on the bus." He said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Did you need something?" And he said, "Yeah, I could use some help." And I said, "Well, I could come over right now." He said, "No, whenever you get a chance." And so the dream was over, and I could hear his voice as clear as my voice is to you right now, or even more clear if we were in person. And I woke up that Sunday morning, and I told my wife and our child, Jonah, who was like 14 at the time, or somewhere around there. I said, I had this dream, and I feel like my dad wants us to do his work for him. And but like I said, I was about 95% sure, but I wasn't locked in all the way. But I was sure that was what it was. And my wife and child agreed with me. That sounds like, legitimate. And then nothing ever happens to me where it's just singular. There's always something that comes about either 3 days later or 3 months later that validates the first revelation. And so,
I had that dream too.
huh?
I've had something similar. I think I told you over the years.
Well, let me finish mine, and then you can tell me yours, okay? So on Wednesday morning at 4:55 in the morning, I was dead asleep. I wasn't dreaming. And this voice woke me up from a dead sleep and says, read Isaiah 56. And so I woke up and I was like, Isaiah 58? No, 56. And so, sure enough, I woke up finally clear where I could actually read the scriptures. And I read Isaiah 56, and it said, keep the Sabbath day holy. And so we do that in the house. And it said, go to the mountain of the Lord, the house of prayer, and do thy sacrifices for the salvation of man. And it also says for those who are adopted into the house of Israel to go to the house of the Lord, the mountain of prayer, and do thy sacrifices. And so, so that day, I went to the temple, but that was I couldn't do my dad's work yet because I wanted to take Jonah with me, who's my youngest son, and I talked to my wife about when are we going to be able to get this thing done. She says, well, you got soccer, and that's always going to be in the way for a while, for almost a month. Sure enough, less than a month later, a little bit less than a month later, there we were in the baptismal font in the temple, and I got to the point where I needed to say his name in the prayer, and I had to stall out for 30 seconds to get my composure so I could finish out the prayer. Very moving moment. And I thought about, just recently, I thought to myself, is that real? Can I trust what happened there? Because I could have easily formed a connection in my dreams, in my mind, in my subconscious mind, to make that all work out. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty scary sometimes because it really gives you a lot of doubt. So I'm driving down the road having this experience just like a month and a half ago. And it just, the Spirit just poured upon me like, no, it was real. But it's not, but a feeling doesn't validate everything. It only helps you get through the moment that you're having a doubt. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got that same question you asked from my wife, who has a friend that she was visiting that was asked the question about what happens in the afterlife. So not only did you ask the question 2 weeks later, but I already had that question asked to me before.
Yeah.
And whenever I was talking to my wife about that, I said, if you think about the situation with that dream about my dad and doing his work, the natural conclusion or the natural statement that would have been said by that voice that woke me up would have been said, it is time for you to go do your dad's work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what Isaiah 56 means. It says.
Yeah.
I have no idea what Isaiah 56. So instead of telling me to go do his work, he tells me to go read a scripture.
Yeah.
Which I had no idea what the scripture read before I read it. Is that right?
Yeah.
So again, now I'm fully aware that this was a moment in my life that God said to me
Yeah.
that not only do I need you to go do your work, because I had a bad past. It was horrible. Because for a long time in my life, I felt like I didn't deserve God's love or to
Mhm.
even be in the temple or even take the sacrament. But when he gave me that chapter to read and said, hey, go do your sacrifices, that means I was accepted in his presence.
Mhm.
That means I could be in his temple. I could take his sacraments. I could do all these things. And that meant everything to me. So it wasn't just for my dad, but it also helped me through my struggles of knowing whether or not I was good enough to be there.
Mhm.
So again, I got a question, and I'm going to let you say your. I want you to do your story too, but I want you to answer this question:
Mhm.
what would be the natural course of desire? Would it be God, or would it be that I put it in my mind to read this chapter I had no idea about, or would it have been I put in my mind that, hey, go do His work, kind of thing, in that second experience?
Well, if they say that happened to me, because the first one is obviously read the scripture, and the second one, if it says what you said, that means to do the work. If that's
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if the desire drove the narrative, if the desire drove the dream, and it was not of God, then the second part of that would have been I would have been told to go to the temple. Is that right?
yeah,
And not read a chapter.
yeah,
Because if it tells me to read a chapter, then it has to be from a source that says it's outside of myself.
yeah,
Because I don't know what the chapter reads.
yeah,
But if it comes from me, then the natural course would be do your dad's work.
yeah,
It'd be a completely different statement, wouldn't it, in that second experience?
yeah.
So again, how does that affect your thought process on whether this stuff is real or not?
If I have a desire,
No, I'm talking
uh,
about my experience. What does my experience, how does that help you, or how do you use that as a way to validate your experiences?
that pretty much it's connected from what I wanted to know of my answer, my question, and what you wanted to know, either subconsciously or wanting to pray about it, is however our faith is connected with God, it's gonna get presented to us, whether we like the answer or not, or whether it's something we seek directly or it doesn't work out. We're It's a feeling of something you can't explain. Like you just know it to be true. It's
If I'm
not.
having those experiences and you're having experiences, then you can at least say, I'm not crazy.
Yeah,
This stuff is not just a delusion of my mind. Is that right?
yeah,
So because let me go to another experience where I use my great grandmother's experience to help me through
mhm,
those difficult times where am I crazy? Am I
yeah,
delusional about these things? Or is this stuff really happening? My great grandmother, who's laying in her bed in 1932, sees her son in a casket by her in a vision. And she tells the family that's in the same room as her, because of one room house, she says, Marion, she's talking to her son, her oldest son, who's 12 years old. She says, Marion, I see you in your casket. And the family and him just say, oh, Mom, you're crazy, kind of thing. A week later, he was shot dead
yeah,
with the same casket and everything, flower arrangement that she's seen in the vision. It was actually what he was buried in. So
Mhm.
I use my great grandmother's experience to validate the experiences I'm having.
Yeah.
So with my experiences, telling you my experience, does that help you validate some of those experiences you've had?
Yeah.
Makes it easier, huh?
Yeah.
So what if you were to engage yourself in more like things in that way where you were watching videos of other people who've had this similar experiences or those experiences that connect them to God? How would that
Yeah.
affect your thinking over this dry period in your life?
Yeah. No, it's almost a relief. You know what I mean? Like it's somebody who's like had those experiences about. And the thing is too, is like we almost not the same exact dream, but we've had the same exact message. And I know well, it started in high school or middle school. Is I had a dream. Grandpa came in and he said it was a feeling that I needed to go to his house. I don't know why I had to go to his house. I've had it 3 times. I've had a dream where it was me asking him to go there to his home for some reason. I don't know why, but it was just more of like a I needed to go there to fix something, like either to talk to him or he wanted to talk to me. And I've had those dreams. So I was 3 times with him. One time with Anita, she came to my house and told me I was crying hysterically, and she came to me and told me everything's gonna be okay. I remember it clear as day. I still remember that dream. It was when Anita passed away. She came to my house in my dream and told me everything was gonna be okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm not calling you crazy, but that's a crazy experience, isn't it?
yeah.
And and who was Anita? Great great
Your
aunt?
great aunt. Yeah,
Yeah, she was my great aunt who raised me. Is that right?
yep,
And we went over to her house. Used to go over to her house quite a bit at one time. Is that right?
yep,
Whenever her daddy was going through his divorce and all that.
yep,
Okay, so she was good people, wasn't she?
yep,
And she was connected, wasn't she?
yep.
So that's really cool. And was that the experience you were wanting to tell me?
Yeah, it was.
That's
It was just going. I still have that feeling. That I don't know. It's when I was younger. I had to drink multiple drinks. It wasn't like 3 drinks in a day. It was every couple of years. I needed to go to his house to see him. It wasn't like any bad. It was more just to be connected with him. And that's what I. And you telling me your dream is like the same thing as I was dealing with. Is
yeah.
to feel.
We absolutely need validation for those who have gifts like this. We always need validation because from other people that we're not going crazy. We're not illogical in our thinking because it's so easy for us to start to distance ourselves from those experiences because of because of the disconnect because nobody else is telling us about their experiences. And that's one of the things that is really hard sometimes is like I said, I've got Satan attacks us on every front he can.
Mm-hmm.
And when he can't make it through one door, he's got always another door to creep in on. So let's say that we're locked in because at this moment in our lives because of experiences. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't get through that door. But then he comes around and he knocks on the door of science and he starts giving us these ideas in science, and people start to flood in with these ideas of science and how God cannot be real because science doesn't prove him to be real
Yeah.
because there's no science that can prove. I mean, think about this. Can science really establish a connection between two human beings
Yeah.
and their relationship? No, it has not. There's no way that science can look at that. They can't say uh, uh, my great 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 grandfather, who's Sam Paul, who was portrayed to, or the inspiration for Rooster Cogburn, can they really do anything to say that that is my real grandfather?
Yeah.
They can do it through DNA, but you'd have to dig up his old bones.
Yeah.
But they don't have bones of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So there's no way to connect him in a. So the only time that we can really say that we have a connection with Jesus Christ is because of a relationship that we've accrued over time, because we've read his books, read about him, we've listened to people that have had similar experiences than us that have that relationship, and so they can't study relationships through science, but
Mm-hmm.
but Satan can say science never can prove there's a God, and so that kind of so Satan. So how do we combat that? Well, we take our foundation that gives us the knowledge that there's a God, which is the dictionary, which is other people's experience, our own experiences, and we fashion a sword so we can attack back at Satan
Mm-hmm.
in that way. We don't go in with a shield. To too many times do we go with a shield up to defend ourselves from the adversary, and that adversary could be Satan. It could be our those who object to our beliefs. It could be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But if we always go up with a shield to defend ourselves, we'll never win
Mm-hmm.
for ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's why you got to get a sword out and be ready to use it. And what a
Yeah.
sword is knowledge.
Yep.
And not the kind of knowledge that just because. How many times have you seen any pro team win only playing defense?
None.
Because the only thing they could do is tie. Is that right?
Yeah.
But when they put a bat in their hand, or they got the ball in their hand, or they have the potential to win. Is that right?
Yep.
So we're not out here to lose the game. We're not out here to tie, because the tie gives you nothing. We're out here to win. And the
Yeah.
only way we win is by having knowledge and having support. The support that it takes to have to because knowledge is not just the books that we read. It's the experiences that we've had. That also says the books that we're reading, those experiences those people had, I can relate to them, and therefore I have a strong enough mechanism that I can go ahead and pull my sword out whenever somebody attacks me through science and say,
Yep.
You're done.
Yeah.
Get out of my face, or I'm going to end it right here.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And sometimes we relax so much in our connection with God, we stop reading His books, we stop going to church, we stop doing all those things that gives us our sword in hand,
Mm-hmm.
and the best we have is a shield. And after a while, if somebody keeps on beating on that shield with a mace or something like that, that shield is going to go give away. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yes, sir.
So, and I'm not telling you to go to church. I'm just saying
No, I
that
know.
if it's up to you, it's again you have to have value. The church has to have some value so that you want to be there.
Yeah.
And so, look, you're 22. You said, is that right?
23.
23. I was 32 or so when I got going again. So don't take this moment in your life and say, well, now that I'm having all these problems, there's no way that God can ever want me back. Because I'll tell you right now, you haven't done anything compared to what I've done in my life. that would ever keep you away from God. Even Paul, the apostle, who had murdered or seen or was there at the time that Stephen was murdered,
Yeah.
holding the robes of the those who were throwing the stones. If God could accept him, and I just read a book called Mafia to Mormon. I've got the book on my phone. I read it all the way through, 500 pages and or 300 and something pages, whatever it was, and I read it in like 3 days.
Oh wow.
I hate reading, you know that.
Yeah.
But here's a mafia guy that was very heavily in the mafia. He he had to go to his to the man and tell him that he was no longer wanting to be a part of the organization,
Yeah.
and that the only way that the only thing that saved his life was the fact that he had all the information on the mafia that would have exposed them, and he traded it for his life.
Yeah.
So, and God wanted him still to be a part of his kingdom. And there's so many stories like that, that we can relate to when we are struggling in our lives, when we're choosing paths that we obviously know are not the best paths.
Yeah.
But it's the path sometimes that we have to take in order to become the person that God needs us to be.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, if I did not have such a bad past, if my life would have been as crystal clean as any Latter-day Saint that was raised in the church, raised in a prominent family, who never wavered from the gospel, I would be the worst human being ever.
Yeah.
Because I would have never had any compassion for you or for any of my children or anybody else that would not seek to the level of righteousness. You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my experiences have actually helped me relate to a lot of people and help a lot of people, so that I don't look like I'm out of place and unaware of their situation. I can
Yeah.
relate to them, and and that's so you're on your journey,
Yeah.
and that journey is uh, can either give you opportunity to become greater, or it can destroy you, and you just have to figure it out on your own on how that journey takes you in
Yeah.
your future. So
Yeah.
is there anything else you wanted to relate to me, or are you
No,
is
pretty
there
much,
is this conversation helping your
No, it's definitely cleared my mind. It made me feel a lot more safe and not so paralyzed. No, it's kind of given me a clear view of what I need to do. Is I need to, because beforehand I felt like my spiritualness was very not spiritualness. My mind and God was unquestionable. But now, the first time really dealing with doubt, it's kind of reassured me. It says I'm not. It makes me feel not alone anymore. You know?
you don't feel alone? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Good, good. And that's the important part, is not is when we isolate ourselves from those things that could inspire us to continue on our journey, then we do become doubters of our own reality. I mean, how many people have you can you imagine are out there? Well, I don't even know if I exist.
Yeah.
What an absurd idea. I love that word absurd, but it's an absurd idea. If you're conscious, if you're talking to me, you exist.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
And so there's absurdity in all things, but and like I said, we can't hold our position or gain ground by just being nonchalant in the gospel.
Yeah.
We either, and when we become nonchalant, it weakens us, and Satan attacks us.
Yeah.
And like I said, the way I get through, because like I said, I get having some serious doubts in my life.
Mhm.
And the only way, and some down moments, uh, and the only way I can shake myself is to go watch testimonies.
Yeah.
I'll binge watch like Hugh Nibley or whatever I can binge watch that is spiritual. It's kind of funny. I don't know if you didn't even remark on it or nothing, but I had like 3 weeks ago or whatever, I was having a down time for a week where I just didn't have any motivation to talk to people about spiritual things.
Mhm.
Is that unusual or what?
Yeah, that's pretty unusual.
Because that's all I want to talk about. I want to be engaged all the time. And I thought to myself, how am I going to shake myself of this down? And on Thursday night, I was thinking, music has always been one of those things that I could use to help me get out of this. And then the name Ravi Shankar, the music from India, came to my mind. I was like, so I started listening to it and like I was engaged again. I was like,
Yeah.
wow. And then on Saturday, I was listening to one of his songs and it was a chant where, it was a song with words and not just a instrumental. And I was reading the chant and it talked about how to become connected to God. And in that, I realized and I remember why I love the music from India so much because their music is really pointed towards, at least 70% of their music is pointed towards how to get connected to God, whether it be an instrumental or chants. And so
Yeah.
that's probably how like, that's why I liked it so much. But it was kind of interesting that this week or last week or whatever it was, I was looking at my memories, and one of my memories was from about the same time that I just posted the thing about this good time for listening to Ravi Shankar.
Mhm.
Well, I think it was I put it on there on my post 5 years ago in April. That was a good day to listen to Ravi Shankar.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm a
pretty funny.
creature of habit for whatever reason.
Yeah,
That's pretty funny, isn't it?
that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So anyway, so like I said, uh, uh, I love having these conversations with you. You've always been engaging,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. So, is there any last things that you'd like to say to kind of kind of help the people understand where you were when you started the conversation and where you are now?
I'd say before the conversation, I would say, didn't know what was going on, unsure. I say with this one, because I trust you with this type of conversation. Um, it's like I'm not gonna go to you for if I have to get my leg amputated or anything. I go to you because I trust you. It's like going to a doctor. I go to a doctor. It's just like making sure what I be reassured of what I was going through.
Very good, and that makes a lot of sense. You went to somebody that was an expert in the field. Is that right?
Yeah,
Well, I appreciate you thinking of me like that.
yeah,
And I got a question for you.
yeah.
What is my honesty level?
Your honesty level, 100%.
Did I lost a job, didn't I?
Yeah,
And why did I lose a job?
there's your honesty.
Because of my honesty. Is that right?
Yeah,
I even have one of my bosses when I asked if I could be a manager. He says you live too high of a moral life.
come.
Is that is that wrong or what?
Yeah, no, I get it.
So it happens that way. So
That's
again,
what I have right now.
what's
I
that?
don't have, but it's just I'm honest with people. I shoot them straight, and it's an issue for some people. They said you got to keep it to you or you got to lie. It's like that's not who I am.
Yeah, we don't. Lying doesn't do anybody any good. So
Yeah.
that's good. All right, my son. I
All
love
right,
you.
love you too, Daddy.
Thanks a lot.
No
You'll see
problem.
it on YouTube here in probably a couple hours.
Yeah, sounds good. I love you, Daddy.
Love you too. Bye-bye. So remember, my friends, subscribe to this channel, press the like button, and share this video with your friends. And let's make a difference in the world.